Hello everyone, I'm Ronald Mehta and welcome back to Digit.com, a platform where we make life simple for management students worldwide. In this video on the subject of retail management, we are going to cover the topic on merchandise procurement. The gamut of merchandise procurement ensures finding the best suppliers of merchandise to ensure constant inventory. This video also takes a stab at how Zara and Nike have perfected the art of merchandise procurement. So now let's start with a brief introduction on merchandise procurement. The term procurement or sourcing means finding or seeking out products from different places, manufacturers or suppliers. Moving on to merchandise procurement process. The process of merchandise procurement, or I may say sourcing, involves the above mentioned steps, starting with identifying the sources of supply, next contacting and evaluating the sources of supply, next negotiating with the sources, then placing the order, then establishing vendor relation, and finally analyzing the vendor's performance. So now let's take a quick stab at each one of them quickly. First, identifying the sources of supply. The first step in the process of sourcing is to identify the sources of supply. Whether the product will be sourced from the domestic market or from the international market is a question here. Domestic sources of supply may be located by visiting central markets, trade shows or expositions. Trade shows are also a good ground for finding new sources of supply. Moving forward, in addition to buying from the domestic market, an organization may seek out foreign sources from where merchandise can be purchased. As retailers today operate in global marketplace, the sourcing of products internationally is also reality, which we will see in some examples later on. The costs associated with global sourcing include foreign currency fluctuations, import tariffs, cost of carrying inventory, and transportation cost. Moving on to step 2, that is contacting and evaluating the sources of supply. Contacting a source of supply may be as simple as having a representative visit the office and meet with the buyer and showcase a collection of the merchandise. This is often termed as vendor-initiated contact. The other method of contacting source of supply is termed as retailer-initiated contact. This may be as simple as a buyer, as in the retailer, visiting the central marketplace. Moving on, a decision now needs to be taken on the potential vendors. The above-mentioned criteria need to be kept in mind. First, the target market for whom the merchandise is being purchased. Next, the image of the retail organization and the fit between the product and the image of the retail organization. Next, the merchandise and prices offered. Next, terms and services offered by the vendor. Then, the vendor's reputation and reliability. And finally, once the source of supply are identified, they need to be evaluated. The evaluation criteria would vary from retailer to retailer. Moving on to step 3, negotiating with vendors. The retail buyer then needs to negotiate the price, the delivery dates, the discounts, the shipping terms, and possibility of returns. While negotiating with the vendors, it is necessary to keep in mind the vendor's history, his or her goals, and constraints. Moving on, the following are the types of discounts that could be available to the buyer, as in the retailer, which entail trade discounts, chain discounts, quantity discounts, seasonal discount, and cash discount. Moving on to step 4 of placing the order. After having completed the negotiation and finalizing the rate, the buyer now needs to be formalizing the order of purchase. This is done by raising a purchase order. Typical information contained in the purchase order are name of the purchaser, name of the manufacturers and suppliers, the delivery address, the invoice address, the price of the products, quantity ordered, delivery date, and terms of payment and delivery. Moving on to step 5, establishing vendor relations. Retailers have for long been cautious of sharing information with their suppliers. However, times have changed, and many organizations work with the supplier as a team to create a competitive advantage. This is something that we will throw light on in a topic known as category captain when we move on to that particular video. Shared information is a vital component of this new approach only if the right information is shared with the right people for the right reason. To do this, the retailer needs to understand the importance of the trading relationship of both sides. Moving on to step 6, analyzing the vendor performance, which is the final step. Each retailer will have his own criteria for the selection of vendors. Key criteria for evaluating the performance of vendors are: first, the total orders placed on the vendors in a year, the total returns to the vendor and the quality of the merchandise, then the initial markup on the products, then the markdown if any, then the participation of the vendor in various schemes and performances, next, transportation expenses if borne by the retailer, next, cash discount offered by the vendor, then comes the sale performance of the merchandise, and finally, both quantitative and qualitative factors are considered during this evaluation. Now moving on to certain examples of merchandise procurement. The first one being Nike's outsourcing strategy. Nike's manufacturing network consists of over 700 factories in 42 countries. Each product moves through 57 distribution centers across a network of 18,500 accounts, 140,000 retail doors. Yet Nike owns no factories for manufacturing its footwear and apparel, which makes up about 88% of its revenues. Instead, manufacturing is outsourced to third parties because of the cost advantages of doing so. Nike's footwear is manufactured outside the US by independent contract manufacturers that often operate multiple factories. And finally, the example of wherein Zara uses a make and buy approach. Zara produces the more fashionable and riskier items which need testing and piloting in Spain. It outsources production of more standard designs with more predictable demand to Morocco, Turkey, and Asia to reduce production cost. Moreover, the more fashionable and riskier items, which are around half of its merchandise, are manufactured at a company-owned factories in Spain, northern Portugal, and Turkey. Clothes with a longer shelf life, that is, the one with more predictable demand patterns such as basic t-shirts, are outsourced to low-cost suppliers, mainly in Asia. So that's it, folks. This brings an end to the topic on merchandise procurement. These are the list of sources and links referred to for the content in the video. Thank you.